What's up guys, Readiness Reviews, here with you again, and this is a Royal Tiger Imports 1886 Lebel, which was of course the main French infantry arm of the First World War. And as far as RTI merchandise goes, this is actually in pretty good external condition. It doesn't look too bad, but it came super dirty, too dirty to take it straight out to the range and shoot. So in this video, we're going to do a full disassembly, see what everything is looking like on the inside, give it a good cleaning, and finally, take it out to the range and see how it shoots. We did have some questions about this rifle as far as muzzle condition goes, so I am very curious to see how it's going to print on paper. To see those results though, you have to wait until later in the video. Before we get this super cool rifle over to the desk, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you're into seeing military surplus firearms on YouTube, and to subscribe to the channel to see all my future videos. If you know someone else that might enjoy this video, make sure you share it, because that's really the best way to help the channel grow. Now let's move on over to the desk and tear it down. So this is my B-grade, non-matching Lebel from Royal Tiger Imports. This rifle is dated 1890, made by Manufacturer de Armes de Saint-Étienne, and it does have an M93 update. As far as the serial numbers on this rifle goes, it is all matching besides the bolt as far as I can tell. So I was pretty happy with that. I wasn't quite expecting it to be as matching as it is, but oh boy, is this thing dirty. This will actually be my first time taking down a Lebel, so bear with me as we go through this little learning experience here. I know we have to separate the bolt head from the bolt first. We rotate the bolt head down, and I think it should just come right off. There's our very dirty bolt head. Got a piece of wire wheel, it looks like, on there. Unfortunately, these rifles were wire willed. Apparently it was done in Ethiopia. That's the story RTI gives anyway. And then the bolt should just come right out. There's our firing pin. Looks like it's in good shape. Check out all that crust down in the inside. All that crud is basically why I didn't take it straight to the range to shoot it. Stuff like that can be a bore obstruction. You never want to shoot a firearm unless it's relatively clean. All right, so next we'll work on these action screws. The screw was a little bit tight, but it's coming out fairly decently now. Finish it off by hand. All right, that one's out. French ordnance rifles are notorious for having spanner heads on them. They really did not want these firearms to be disassembled in the field. They wanted them to be able to be cleaned by the soldier, but that's about it. Anything more intensive than a simple cleaning, they wanted it to go back to the armory. So they put these spanner bits on them so people weren't tempted to take them apart in the field. Luckily, I don't think you have to do anything with this spanner screw, and that's a good thing because I don't even have the bit to fit it. So next, I believe we take out the side screw. That turned without too much pressure. There's that one. Now this trigger guard I think should just lift up, and there it is. I was expecting it to be a little bit more difficult than that with as dirty as everything is, but it seems to be coming right out no problem. This is going to be where the majority of our cleaning takes place. Look at this mess. It is rusty and caked with who knows what, all kinds of botanical debris and hair, bugs, dirt, sand, everything. To finish the removal of the buttstock, we do have one spanner bit here that needs to come out. I'm hoping I have one that fits it. Hopefully this one will do the job. It is super tight. I'm gonna have to do something to loosen that up, or otherwise it'll probably break my spanner bit. It's literally that tight. So I'm putting a little coil on that. I'm gonna let that sit for 10 or 15 minutes and come back and try it again. While our penetrating oil is going to work, we'll start messing with the fore end here. We have a barrel band held on by a retaining spring. So we'll push that spring down and wiggle the barrel band off. Luckily, it doesn't feel super tight. Rock it back and forth just a little bit at a time until that slides off. This rifle's so long, it's hard to get things in shot when I'm working on the front end here. But we have the same idea here. We have a nose cap held on by a retaining spring. And I think I'm gonna have to tap this one with my mallet because it feels a bit tighter than that other one was. This is a trick I've had to use with Mausers before. I use a little clamp to hold the spring down, so that way I have two hands to work with. And then I'm going to use a punch and a hammer to try to break it loose. Once the spring was held down, it just took a couple gentle taps to move the nose cap a little bit. And now I should be able to get it the rest of the way without the clamp. And there we are. I know the Lebel nose cap needs to be inverted to clear the front sight. And there we are, our nose cap. The middle band comes all the way off, and then the removal of the forestock with a little manipulation of the plunger. That comes right off. Look at that, they had some kind of canvas in there, probably to take up some empty space. And basically the whole bottom of the barrel is wrapped with it. The rifle was probably a little bit floppy and they used this stuff to tighten it back up, which would most certainly improve accuracy, I would think. But the problem with canvas like this is it attracts water, bringing water right to the metal. And of course, when you mix water and metal, you get rust. So we have a ton of rust going on underneath this canvas. Look at that, all the way down. Very, very rusty under the wood line. I really don't like that practice of putting accurizing canvas wraps on milsurps. I mean, it's all moldy and rusty, and you're only asking for problems in the future, but at the time, this was done for a reason. Nowadays, if we need to bed something, we'll just throw some acroglass or something in there to fill in the empty spaces. We can see very clearly where the top of the barrel was wire willed. The bottom of the barrel has not been looked at all. It's been in that wood for who knows how long with that canvas wrap on it. The forestock doesn't look all that bad though. A little bit of white mold under there, but certainly serviceable. These rifles have a tube magazine. This is the follower here, very much like a modern day shotgun. The rounds are fed into this tube, and I'm sure all that needs to come out and be cleaned. I'm going to be honest with you about this. I don't know the process to get that tube out of the forend, so that would be something I save for the future. Right now, I'm just trying to get this thing baseline ready to pull the trigger on it. So I will be cleaning this as much as I can, but probably not as much as I should, right away at least. Let's see if our coil has helped at all. Nope. Look at that, it bent the end on my spanner. So I'm going to need to get another bit before I can even take the stock off there. That's unfortunate because I really wanted to get the inside of this as clean as possible. And you need to remove the buttstock in order to do so. But that's not going to stop me from getting as much clean as I can. Normally with everything being this bad, I would be taking it to the sink and giving it a good wash with soap and water. But since I still have wood attached to it, I don't really want to do that in this case. So I guess I'm going to get in there with a toothbrush and some good old Hoppies number 9 and just get to work scrubbing. Put a generous amount of Hoppies on my toothbrush there. Get in there and get to work. There's so much gunky debris in here. I've seen some very dirty firearms in my time, but this one is certainly among the dirtiest. That Hoppies in the toothbrush is doing a really good job of loosening everything up though. It's making this disgusting dirt solvent slurry on the inside. This rifle's probably been in Africa since the very early 1900s, and I bet you it has not been taken down and cleaned like this even one time since then. That is some serious dirt. Now that I got things loosened up a fair amount, I'll get in there with some paper towel, wipe things off. I noticed the inside of this receiver feels a little bit sharp, so I better be careful so I don't cut myself. One time I was cleaning a shotgun. It was a Remington 1100, and the little slide rail in that thing was like a razor, and it cut me really bad, and I just started spewing blood everywhere. Ever since then, I'm a little bit more cautious when I go sticking my fingers down inside of a receiver. Look at that crud. But hey, it's looking a good deal better already. With as far as I have been able to take it down, we'll definitely be able to get this gun out to the range tomorrow. Unfortunately, my range trips are fewer and far between than I would like. When I have the opportunity to go, I definitely have to take advantage of the situation, and that's why I'm forcing this one to the range probably a little bit earlier than I normally would. I'd really like to get it all completely conserved before attempting to shoot it, but I wanted to get this video out so you guys can see how well it shoots with the bore condition, just in case you were thinking about pulling the trigger on an RTI Lebel of your own. Now that I went in for one whole pass with my Hoppies and my toothbrush, I'm going to do that exact same thing again. After that second pass, the inside of the receiver is looking a heck of a lot better. I do have some very hard to get at places, and for that, I'm going to get in there with some Q-tips. I'll probably go through a whole bunch of these, but I'm basically just going to dig around and get all the crud out of all the nooks and crannies the best I can. I'll spare you the minutia of Q-tipping out all the corners, and let's get over to our trigger assembly here. This particular component may be the dirtiest firearm component I've ever encountered in my entire life. I think the best course of action would probably be to throw this in the ultrasonic cleaner, but to be honest, I think there's just too much debris on this for the ultrasonic to even get down there and do a good job of cleaning. So I'm going to give it a good toothbrush scrubbing first as well to try to loosen everything up. It's a wonder the action even cycled with as dirty as this is. It was quite hard to work the bolt, but it did move. So maybe these Lebels weren't too bad in the muddy trench conditions of World War I. I can't imagine they got too much worse than this. And if it would still work in this shape, that's a pass in my book. I'm a little bit hesitant to get in there and really start tearing this trigger group down down because it looks pretty complex, and I've done virtually no research on the mechanics of the Lebel so far. Just a couple little tidbits of information that are stored in my head from years past. I think it would be a good idea to at least be a little better research before I go taking stuff apart that I don't really understand, because I don't want to break anything on a rifle that's, heck, 130 years old. All right, just like the receiver, we'll go in and wipe all this down now that I've given it a good scrubbing all over. Now there's all kinds of internal parts that I'm just not going to get to using this method, so I might resort to sticking it in the ultrasonic after all, just to make the cleaning a little bit more thorough. I will get into the nooks and crannies on this with my Q-tips as well, just to get out as much crud as I can. Lastly, I do want to address this barrel. I'm going to use a separate toothbrush because on the barrel I'm going to be using ballistol instead of my hoppies. I really want to see how bad this rust is, so I'm going to put a good coating of ballistol on the metal there and then just go to town scrubbing with the toothbrush. I'm hoping to find that this is mostly just surface rust and that there isn't much pitting going on. Since this is a critical part of the gun in regards to shooting it, I do want to know for sure whether or not I have any dangerous pits on the barrel. So although I'm not going through and really conserving at the moment and really removing that rust the way that it needs to be removed, what I am doing is essentially safety checking the rifle and making sure that I'm not going to have any blowouts if I try to put rounds down the barrel. Man, the bluing underneath the barrel looks great where there's no spots of rust at. There's very minimal pitting. There's some pitting on the end part here right where it butts up against the receiver. The rest of that rust does appear to be mostly surface rust. I'm just going to continue going all the way down the barrel with my ballistol and my toothbrush just to make sure I don't find any weak points of extreme pitting that would make me question the safety of actually shooting the firearm. This is the worst of it right up here near where the nose cap goes, and as long as it looks good under there, I think we're going to be ready to get it over to the range. Wipe that off. And heck yeah, that's looking good. So no major pitting on the barrel. I think this cleaning portion of the video has drug on long enough at this point. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to shoot this thing. So let's take it on over to the Readiness Reviews range. All right, so we are here on the Readiness Reviews range with the RTI Lebel. We're gonna do some prone shooting and see how it groups on paper. And then I'm also gonna chronograph it a little bit because I was curious to see what the muzzle velocity on a Lebel is with PPU ammo. So let's finally get around to squeezing the trigger on it. I barely can see the red. This is the target from that prone shooting clip that you just watched. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn on my target camera, so I don't have footage of the rounds actually making contact with our cardboard here, but as we can see, they most definitely did. Now, this is the group that the Lebel made. It's a 5-shot group. This target was set up at 30 yards, and of course, I did make those shots prone. This target is very small for my individual eyesight. At 30 yards, I have a hard time making out too much more than just one of these red circles. Now you would think with this group, that's not too terribly bad if this is your point of aim. But this is where the plot thickens. The point of aim was actually this target here. This rifle is shooting extremely high and extremely to the right. Now these were not shots that I felt super confident in. I was still having a hard time seeing. Although I was prone, my stability was not as good as it could have been, and I was still getting used to the very stiff trigger on this rifle. Excuses, I know, but one major outcome from this that we've derived is that this rifle most certainly is not keyholing. Each one of these is a nice round hole punched in the cardboard. So at 30 yards at least, the bullets are stabilized. I expected the rifle to shoot very high, even with the folded forward battle sight position of the Lebel. These rifles are still zeroed to a much farther than 30-yard range, so shooting high was no surprise. As far as shooting to the right goes, that's a little bit more annoying, but luckily, the front sight on the Lebel is dovetailed and is driftable, and so it wouldn't be all that hard to adjust that sight to move this group over to my point of aim. Now, as far as shooting high goes, you kind of just have to adjust accordingly, take a 6 o'clock hold, and you should be okay. Now, after shooting this rifle and getting it back home, I gave the bore another good scrubbing and cleaning with some hoppies, brushes, patches, ballistol, and the bore is looking so much better after shooting. I'm very happy with the way it's looking at this point. It even has a little bit of sheen to it, which I really wasn't expecting when I first unboxed this rifle. As a viewer pointed out to me, the muzzle test on a Lebel doesn't really matter that much. Even though this very clearly eats the whole bullet, the bullet of an 8mm Lebel is its largest under the neck. So if I was to pull this bullet from the case and drop it down into the muzzle, it would no doubt be caught by the rifling, and apparently that is pretty common of Lebel rifles. While we have the ammo out, I will talk about my chronograph results. So this PPU 8mm, I only chronoed like 3 or 4 rounds from it, just to get sort of an idea, and I found the muzzle velocity to be between 2350 and about 2400 feet per second. For a 200 grain bullet, that's pretty admirable. The rifle functioned fantastically. Nothing broke, luckily. Finally, scratching the Lebel off my Milsurp bucket list has been a huge addition to my military rifle collection. And even though this was a very expensive firearm, and I was very afraid to make that purchase from Royal Tiger Imports, with this particular example, I ended up happy with the results. It shoots good enough for me. It's in good enough shape for me. Although it came really dirty, we got it cleaned up fairly well. And without a doubt, I do intend to do an even more extensive cleaning of this rifle in the future. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel if you like the Lebel content, because I do plan to do a full Lebel history review that will have even more shooting footage. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. That really helps the channel out with the Google algorithm. To see all future Milsurp content on the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See you then. Peace.